Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. War of words between Prime Minister and Maroon chief over sovereignty of medical doctor says Omicron variant may help Jamaica to reach. And later in sports, Reggae Boys defender terminates his contract in the Middle East. I'm O'Shane Masters and here are the details. Former president of the Jamaica Medical Doctors Association, Dr. Alfred Dawes, is in support of the government's decision to not implement lockdowns in curbing the spread of COVID-19. Speaking this morning on TVJ's Smile Jamaica program, Dr. Dawes reasoned that the Omicron strain of COVID-19 could actually help the country reach herd immunity. Sandra Williams reports.
I have been very clear in Parliament, very clear, absolutely gone overboard to say we are not going back to lockdown. So be calm.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness on Sunday insisting that he will not implement another lockdown despite the record spike in COVID-19 cases. The Omicron variant, which has been spreading like wildfire in several countries around the world, is believed to be responsible for the increase in cases locally.
We have people who they're showing all the symptoms of the flu and or Omicron, and at the same time, when you do the PCR test, which is very sensitive, it's coming back negative. So we do know that there is a flu going around, and it is showing almost the exact type of symptoms as what we suspect is Omicron, because it's still not confirmed yet. But with the classic symptoms, the sneezing and the upper respiratory airway symptoms, it's highly likely that it is Omicron that is here, that's spreading like wildfire.
Former president of the Jamaica Medical Doctors Association, Dr. Alfred Dawes, admits Omicron is a milder, less fatal form of the virus.
The studies coming out of South Africa now are showing that when you have Omicron, you have protection against Delta and the other strains. So it is almost as if you have unleashed a natural vaccine on the population. It's spreading rapidly, and you can get to a peak early, and the majority of the population, because they're going to be infected by this virus, we can't hide from it. It's likely that many persons here who are watching will get infected. They will get some immunity that will offer some protection against strains to come.
He supports the Prime Minister's decision to not implement lockdowns to limit the spread of COVID-19. He explains that the Omicron variant generates antibodies that will decrease one's risk of serious illness, hospitalization, and death. Therefore, the former JMDA president believes the Omicron strain might actually assist Jamaica in reaching herd immunity.
Because if you're going to allow any strain to run through Jamaica with its low vaccine take-up, then this ought to be the one. And if we can identify and protect the vulnerable, we can decrease the death rates and at the same time get as close as we can to herd immunity.
Sandy Williams, TVJ News.
Chairman of the Western Regional Health Authority, Eric Clark, has sought to clarify the delay in getting the field hospital at the Savlamar Hospital in Westmoreland up and running. Mr. Clark says the delay is because the team had deviated from the original plan to turn the facility into a permanent structure after the pandemic. He says the field hospital, which started in September, should have taken 2 to 3 weeks to complete. But the expectation is that it will now be ready sometime this week.
When the board of directors at WRHA looked at the expenses involved with a field hospital, which we consider a temporary structure, meaning a foundation that may cost $4, $5, $6 million, the need to put in bathroom facilities, etc., at considerable other expense, that it better we look and design it with the possibility to be a permanent building once the tent has reached its useful life and is removed. As such, we have put in the columns, etc., to extend it afterwards to at least a 1 floor. It has the strength to go up 2 floors. That will be a separately funded project.
It's shaping up to be a war of words between Prime Minister Andrew Holness and the leader of the Accompong Maroons, Colonel Richard Curry. Speaking at a press briefing Sunday, Mr. Holness disregarded assertions that Accompong was a sovereign state. The Maroon chief has responded. Kirk Wright has the details.
Not long after Prime Minister Andrew Holness made this announcement,
Jamaica is a unitary, sovereign state. There is no other sovereign authority in Jamaica other than the government of Jamaica. I want that to be absolutely clear. None. And under my leadership, not 1 inch of Jamaica will come under any other sovereign authority.
Maroon Chief Colonel Richard Curry fired back in a terse response.
Mr. Holness, I say this to you. We, the Maroons of Cockpit Country, descendants of the first people of the archipelago now called Jamaica, would like to remind you of a few things. Jamaica is not a unitary sovereign state. Elizabeth II of House of Windsor is your queen and sovereign. Jamaica is simply fully responsible in Elizabeth's Commonwealth.
The two leaders, now at the center of a heated debate, have also captured public attention. Attorney at law Kenyatta Powell says the Maroon settlement in Jamaica does not meet the requirements of a state under international law, but he believes the government should focus its attention on honoring the rights and practices of the Maroons across the island.
The mistake we made at independence was not to specifically bring the Maroons into the constitutional discussion about independence and to specifically have their rights, have their land rights, have their cultural rights and their unique history recognized within the system. I think this is something we can do without rupturing the Jamaican state.
In the meantime, Mr. Holness noted that he would not take taxpayers' money and grant funds to another so-called government, citing the potential for violent conflict in such a situation. Despite the Maroon waging war against the British colony, Mr. Curry says that is of the past.
The war is now over. The right to remit was passed to the government of Jamaica, as the British High Commissioner explained in his speech, not once, but twice, while you were sitting in front of him. I say this, please, please, let good sense prevail. Do the right thing, and please be guided accordingly.
Kirk Wright, TVJ News.
And it's time for a break here on the Midday News. Stay with us. More stories when we return. Welcome back to the Midday News. Education Minister Favour Williams has rubbished claims from some educators who said that adequate time was not given for them to prepare for the resumption of face-to-face classes. She responded to the claims in an interview on Power 106's Morning Agenda.
We have been communicating to our school leaders from November of last year about the phased approach that we were using to bring our students back into the face-to-face environment. In this new term in which we are, the students that would have been added to that phased reopening would have been grades 7 to 10 in our high schools.
According to the Education Minister, there was never doubt that in-person learning would not return this year. She also tried to allay the fears of parents who've been concerned about COVID outbreaks at schools. I
reference our Education in Emergencies manual for the reopening of educational institutions that we have been using ever since we have been in the COVID environment. And that manual, we're on version 3, and so meaning we would have updated it with new information as we go along.
There was excitement at the Spanish Town train station in St. Catherine today following the resumption of the school train service for the first time in over 15 years. Kalisha Williams was there and filed this report.
Dozens gathered at the Spanish Town train station in St. Catherine to witness history. It's been years since a passenger train for students has been on these tracks. At around 6:55 a.m., the first arrival.
And I'm happy to see it start run back. Yeah, and I think it will be more convenient for the students then.
It's a cashless system for pre-selected students who are on the PATH program. While 400 students are registered to take the train, only a few turned up today.
It feels very fun, and I think it's faster than the taxis that I take in my area.
All the students from the 6 participating schools would not have yet collected their cards. The Ministry of Education indicated that they will get their cards today and tomorrow in full, because all the students don't come back at the same time on the same day. So it's going to take us a couple of days to get up to the full 400.
Minutes later, the second train arrived. After the students departed, JUTC buses were on standby to take them to their respective schools. But there were a few hiccups.
Well, we looked at the loading period for the students, how long it would take to load. And for example, we only had a few students, took us some time, so we're going to go back and take a look at how we change that. For example, we will load the students and then we will go down the lane of the bus and tap all their cards instead of having them line up at the gate. Things like that we're going to take a look at.
The trains are expected to leave the station today between 3 and 3:30 p.m. The service is a joint initiative of the Education and Transport Ministries with plans to expand island-wide. Kelisha Williams, TVJ News.
The family of Andrew Ashmead of a Vineyard Town address is this afternoon seeking the public's assistance in locating him. He has been reported missing since September last year. When last seen, Mr. Ashmead was wearing full black clothing and a white shoe. The family told TVJ News several calls placed to his phone went unanswered. If seen, please contact the Vineyard Town Police at 876-922-3184. And for the latest in the world of business, here's Codian Barrett with the Business Minute.
The Development Bank of Jamaica, DBJ, says female entrepreneurs have applied for a large share of its loans and products. Speaking at the launch of the Scotiabank Women Initiative on Friday, head of the DBJ, Milverton Reynolds, said some facilities have more than 50% of the beneficiaries being women.
Female-led businesses and female entrepreneurs are critical stakeholders and recipients of our initiatives at the DBJ.
And overseas, China's largest private tutoring firm, New Oriental, dismissed 60,000 employees and saw operating income plunge by 80%. This following new sweeping rules on the country's private education industry that barred for-profit tutoring last year. Founder Yu Ming Hong published the figures on his official WeChat account on Saturday. Prior to the new rules, New Oriental had employed more than 100,000 staff, including over 54,000 teachers. And that's it for the Business Minute. I'm Codian Barrett.
And it's now time for the top regional and international stories with Sandy Williams.
On the international scene, the U.S. actor and comedian Bob Saget, best known for starring in the sitcom Full House, has died suddenly at age 65. The actor was found unresponsive by staff in his room at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel in Orlando, Florida on Sunday. Officers of the Orange County Sheriff Department arrived after a call from hotel staff and pronounced him dead at the scene. The exact details surrounding his death remains unclear. But in a short statement posted to Twitter, the Sheriff's Department said that detectives had found no signs of foul play or drug use during the initial inquiries. And those were the top regional and international stories.
We head to a quick break. When we come back, Simon Preston will have your Midday Sports Report.
Welcome back. It's now time for Midday Sports. I'm Simon Preston. Novak Djokovic says he's focused on playing in the Australian Open next week after winning a court battle that overturned his visa cancellation. The 34-year-old Serb practiced on court at Melbourne Park within hours of leaving an immigration detention hotel. But Australia's immigration minister still has power to re-cancel the visa and deport the unvaccinated player. The Australian Open begins on January 17, and if Djokovic wins, he'll become the most successful men's player in history. To football we go now, as Reggae Boys defender Damien Lowe has terminated his contract with Al Ittihad Alexandria in the Egyptian Premier League. The 28-year-old ended his 14th-month spell with the club after failing to receive his salary for the last 3 months. Lowe's representatives have reported the matter to football's world governing body, FIFA. Lowe made 30 appearances for the club while scoring 2 goals in the process. TVJ Sports understands that Lowe is currently having a medical with Inter Miami in Major League Soccer. 8 Jamaicans have been named in the Caribbean top 10 most valuable players for 2021, according to German-based football statistical website Transfer Market. Leon Bailey has the highest market value in the index at €32 million, while Mikel Antonio is second at €12 million, while Ethan Pinnock is third at $10 million. Bobby Reid is fourth in the top 10 list, while Shamar Nicholson is sixth, Kemar Ruth 8th, Liam Moore 9th, and Andre Blake 10th. Transfer Market is the leading data website in relation to knowing the market value of players and teams. To France we go now, as Reggae Boys forward Junior Flemings is expected to make his debut for French Ligue 2 side Toulouse as they host Nancy this afternoon. The 25-year-old completed his move to Toulouse last week Wednesday and has been registered and will wear the number 20 jersey. Toulouse are second in Ligue 2 on 37 points, while Nancy are at the foot of the table on 12 points. Kickoff is at 2:45 Jamaica time. Flemings is the first Jamaican to sign for a French club since Keith Kelly in 2000. To England we go now, as Reggae Boys midfielder Daniel Johnson scored for Preston North End in a losing effort as they went down 2-1 in extra time to Cardiff City in the third round of the FA Cup on Sunday. After trailing 1-0, Johnson converted from the penalty spot to make it 1-1 in the 54th minute. However, the Welsh club got the winner in the 116th minute to eliminate Preston from the competition. This was Johnson's third goal of the season in his 21st appearance. Johnson has made 7 appearances for the Reggae Boys while scoring 1 goal in the process. And that is it for your Midday Sports Report. I'm Simon Preston. Ashane, it's over to you.
Thanks, Simon. Just before we go, we have seen 4 days of consecutive cases over 1,000. Do you think that this will have an impact on the sporting arena?
I think it will have an impact. The question is, as it relates to spectators, how much will that hamper the Reggae Boys with their upcoming assignments in January? Issa Champs coming up in April as well. I think it will come down to the figure of how much spectators will be able to come out in their numbers to support their respective teams and schools for upcoming assignments.
Vaccination still low though.
It certainly is, and if persons are still apprehensive towards vaccination, perhaps have a testing site outside of the arenas or stadiums, and if they test negative, then they can enter with their tickets perhaps. That's an option.
All right, thank you very much, Simon. And that's the Midday News. I'm Shane Masters. Join us at 7 for primetime news. On behalf of the news, sports and production teams, good afternoon.